Hi everyone, my name is Keely and I'm the owner and creator here at Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for another soap making video. Now today's video, it has come out a day later than what I usually do, and that is because it is a collaboration video, once again organised by Renee from Soaps for Love. And this time the collaboration was all about fall, and there were a few different options to do with this soap because we had over 60 soap makers, so we split the group up a little bit. There was a choice of making a soap with apples, pumpkins, or both. Now because down here in Australia we're coming into spring and pumpkins really aren't that big a thing down here in Australia, I decided to go with the apple theme. Now the first part of this video, I'm going to show you how I make the apples that were to go on the top of my collaboration soap. Let's go and make them. The first thing I need for these embeds is some white soap dough. Now I already have lots of this made up, so I'm not going to be making any more on camera. I've got quite a few videos that I've done showing you how I actually make the soap dough first. I am going to use this white one first because it seems, yep, that's a nice soft one to start with. What I'm going to start by doing is rolling out some balls. And I am going to be doing, I've already done one off camera to make sure that it was going to work. So I actually only need to make another total of 15 embeds. So we'll do, because I'm working in pairs, we will be doing a total of 8 of these on camera. So I am just going to start by rolling these into a ball. It doesn't matter if they're a little bit bigger than an inch, which is how big my soap bars cut, because we're going to be cutting these in half. I want to make sure that I've got a nice smooth round ball. That had a few too many cracks. I'm just going to warm that back up in my hands a little bit. Now whenever I do work with soap dough, I don't work with my gloves on because I find that it tends to stick all over the gloves, but I do make sure that I sanitize my hands before actually working with them to make sure that they are nice and clean. So I am happy with that sort of shape there. What I'm now going to do with that ball is I'm going to just put a bit of an indent into the top here, and that will all start to make sense as we make these apples, because usually your apples have this little dent in the middle, usually have a little bit of a flat bottom as well. It's not, doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but I'm pretty happy with that shape. So I am going to roll myself out a few more of these, hopefully try and get them all to be about the same sort of size. So here's the bit I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, but I was absolutely delighted when I did my tester and it did. All I'm doing here is I have got some skewers and I am just sticking them into the tops of these little apples. Not too far, only I don't know, about ½ centimeter down. It really doesn't have to go that far in at all. And I kind of got this idea. I was on Instagram and one of the things that came up was someone was making toffee apples, and I thought, I wonder if I can actually do the similar sort of thing using some soap dough and some melt and pour, because I really wanted the apple embeds for this soap to have that white flesh in the middle and then a nice red rosy skin on the outside. So I thought I would give it a go, and it works. It really does. You need to make sure that your melt and pour is at a good temperature so that it actually solidifies quickly. If it's too warm, it's just going to keep running off and it's going to take an awful long time to actually do this. But if you get it just right, it is nice and quick and easy. What I'm going to do is just pull all of these back, and we'll do one apple at a sort of time. I'll pull my paper in. This is just a bit of greaseproof paper. I was asked what I meant by greaseproof paper. It's basically a baking paper that you can use in the oven, and the person then told me that that is what you is known as parchment paper up in the northern hemisphere there. So that is what I'm using. I'm just dipping my apples in. At the moment this is still quite warm, so a lot of it is going to dribble off. I'm just going to pop it in, and I'm going to do the same with all of these pieces, and we will actually give them several coats, just like you would if you were doing proper toffee apples. So we're going to dip that in. The cooler that this gets, the more it's going to actually stick to these apples. I think the first one that I did as a trial, I did about 3 coats on them, and it's a really nice sort of coating. The more coats I did, the cooler my melt and pour got, so the more it actually stuck on each of them. I'm just going to make sure I don't get too much of a pooling in the middle there, because I don't want it to be super thick in that bit. So let's get this one done. So I'll get all of these done, and then we'll move on to doing a second coat on them. Now I've got a few coats on there. I have got some Extravagance Gold mica, and what I'm going to do is give that a bit of a spritz, and then this time dip it in, and what it will do is just give a little bit more sort of texture and dimension to that apple. So that is looking really nice. So this is what I did just before the last sort of coating that I did on my last on my test apples. What I'm going to do is actually trim some of this off, because it's getting quite big, and I don't want it to really just, you know, distort the whole apple. So we'll trim that off. Again, I'm going to give that a spritz with some of that gold mica. This is getting nice and thick now, so this is going to be a really nice coating as my last one. We'll trim up any of this excess melt and pour at the end. So what we might do is actually peel all of them off. Gives me a bit more working room. They're all set. So these set up really, really quickly, especially because it actually is another cool day here. We are starting to get some warmer days, which is nice, but we are sitting quite cool. In fact, this has now set up in my pot. So what I'm going to do is trim that bit of solid stuff off there. I'm going to go and just give this a little bit of a blitz in the microwave just to get it nice and fluid again. Alright, so I have just gently melted that back down. I've got a piece of my soap dough in there, so we'll take that out. And I'm actually going to go back in and dip this one again. So there we go. It's that one. Alright, so again, we're going to spritz with some of that gold mica and dip into our melt and pour. To leave these ones sit here and just give that melt and pour a chance to really firm up. So it should only take about 10 minutes. This spare bit of melt and pour I'm going to go and pour into a mold so we can use it as an embed on another soap later. Okay, so these have been sitting here for about 10 minutes, and what I'm going to do is pull all of my little skewers out of here. These will go into the wash sink so we can wash them and reuse them for other projects. And what we'll do is we'll start off, we'll maybe grab this one because I can see that that one hasn't formed too nicely. What I'm just going to do is trim off a little bit of this sort of real excess, being careful not to go down too low. You can see where that gold just shines through and gives it sort of those different colors. If you're not too happy with the shape, because this is still quite warm and moldable, I'm just going to give it another bit of a roll in my hands and just get that melt and pour to smooth on back out into that sort of apple shape. You need to make sure that you're not waiting too long to be able to do this. You want this melt and pour to still be soft enough that you can manipulate it, because it is quite thin. It is quite easy to reshape. So we've done that one. This one here, this one's quite lumpy bumpy, so it's going to need a bit more of a sort of roll just to really smooth it out there. I'm just going to push in a little bit, and because, as I said, because this is still quite warm, I can easily maneuver that melt and pour around to get it to go nice and smooth again. Let's go. That's that one. Alright, so again, I'm going to trim all this sort of excess off the bottom. I don't know if the camera is really picking up, but somebody has started doing some work out in the street. Hopefully it's not too loud on the camera. Sounds like they're doing some angle grinding or something. One of the houses down the street, they're doing a bit of renovation work by the looks of things. This giant skip turned up and they started bringing stuff out the house, and stuff was starting to go in and all sorts. Not that I'm a nosy neighbour, everyone's been nosy about all the work that we've been doing in our place lately as well, which I will show you in a couple of videos time once we've got all the sort of safety tapes and everything taken down. So that is looking nice. That one's all nicely smoothed out. So I'm going to keep getting these apples all prepped, and then we'll come back for the next bit. Right, so now all of our little apples are all done up. It's time to move on to the next stage to make them look like little apples. The really good thing I found about coating this soap dough into the melt and pour is that when I take my knife and I cut straight down, rather than it squishing, it holds its shape. And that is what half of our little apple is looking like so far. Aren't they cute as they are? But we're going to take it one step further. So let's get all of these little apples cut in half. Well, that bit of soap dough's come out of there, so we will kind of just manipulate that back in. That is the absolute beauty of working with soap dough. So we'll get these ones cut, and then I'm going to get some more soap dough, and we're going to really finish off the inside of these apples, just so that people get a real idea, because at the moment these could be like those little bell peppers filled with some nice feta cheese. So let's get these to actually looking like apples. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I have got some brown soap dough here. So I really don't need a lot of it, so I'm just going to break off a piece, wrap the rest of that back up. I'm just going to warm this bit up so we can start actually manipulating it, and we're going to make some seeds and some stems for these apples. Alright, so I've warmed that piece of soap dough up, and what I'm going to do is just roll it out very, very thinly. So I'll probably just break that up a little bit more because I want it to go nice and thin for the next bit. It will just make it a lot easier to do. So we'll start rolling that out, break that in half again, roll it out a little bit more. I'm just going to keep breaking it. We really won't need very much of this soap dough at all. So that's starting to look good. I'll just break that up a little bit more. And this is looking much better for what we want. So what I'm going to do is grab, one half of my apple here, and I've just got a little sort of cheap icing tool that I picked up in the local store. I will get that out in a minute. What I'm going to do is just put in 3 little holes into my soap dough. Now, some of these have worked, some of them haven't, but what I'm going to do is, there it is, where that toothpick went in, I actually want that little gap, and it was just behind there. So I've taken that out. What I'm going to do is just break off some very tiny, so tiny they've fallen off my hands. I've got some very, very tiny pieces of the brown soap dough, rolling it into a ball and then just pushing it into those little holes that we've just made, and they're going to look like the little seeds to go in these apples. So there's another one. I love watching Sorcery Soap with her soap dough. It is just absolutely amazing what she does. I haven't yet been able to work out how to get such smooth, fine details that she does. She's just got such a knack for it. It's a real pleasure to actually sit and watch some of her videos of her working, and she does these most amazing things. She did some the other day. They were little bats and they were just so delicately done. And so I wish I knew how she actually did them. Alright, so we've got our little seeds into our apple there. I'm just going to make sure that they are nicely pushed in. I'm not worried if they are risen up a little bit above the soap, because that will just give it a little bit more dimension. Then the idea with that skewer, because a lot of these now have, like this is a really good one to actually show. You can see where that skewer was actually stuck into the tops of those apples. What I'm going to do with this bit of soap dough, that's probably a bit long, we'll take a bit off. What I'm going to do is fill in that gap with that bit of soap dough, so it looks like we've got the little stalk on there. And then when it actually comes time to making the soap, I will pipe a couple of leaves on there as well. So let's do another one. So I'm going to grab another bit of that we had started to roll out to make it probably a little bit easier to do my little seeds. I've got a little craft knife here, so I'll just cut off a few little bits to roll into the little seeds. We will grab another piece of apple here, and again I'm just making, you can make however many that you want. I just decided that I wanted 3 little seeds on each side of my apple core here. So I'm just going to 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to pop those little rolled up pieces in there. More with these apples other than what you've seen, so I'm going to finish the rest of them off camera. I am so pleased that these have come up this way. I really wanted to have that nice white flesh in the middle and then that shiny skin on the outside like you get with real apples. So I was so happy when I did my first one that this sort of idea really did come together. So I am going to sit and do the rest of these off camera, and then I will go and get my oils prepared so we can do the soap. So that is what our little apples are looking like to go on the top of our next soap that we're going to make. So here's the thing, guys, if you've been watching my channel for a while now, you would know that that embed making should have actually been shown as the midweek video, and then on the weekend I would show you how I actually made the loaf of soap. If you did catch this week's midweek video, you would have heard me say that I had a little bit of a dilemma, which I discovered on the Monday. So on Monday, I sat down to actually edit the video, and none of the soap making or the actual soap pouring footage was in the folder. I then searched all through the computer trying to find where the footage had gone and just could not find it. I was really cross with myself because just before I filmed the Dead Sea mud soap that I did, the camera had all that footage on. I thought I was okay to delete the SD card, so I reformatted it so I could start recording new soaps, and as a consequence lost all of that footage as well. So I am really, really sorry that I actually can't see the making of the soap. For the soap, I used apple sage from Brambleberry, and it smells amazing. It's been 4 weeks since I made that soap and it is still smelling super strong. It smells so good. Gets this real pineapple smell come through it, really bright and fresh. So even though it was meant to be an autumn soap, this soap really falls into our spring category down here in Australia. So I'm really, really pleased with it. I did use Apple Puree in there, and I also used an in the pot swirl technique. If you watch my Dead Sea Salt Brine soap, I said I wanted to have a go at doing the 2 different in the pot swirls in a loaf soap. So that was where I did 1 in the pot swirl with 1 color using that typical 12, 6, 3 and 9 pour, and then with a second color I did an actual in the pot swirl where I swirled it in and then I poured it into the mold. If I do it again, I would probably use less of the 2 accent colors, because this really did come up a little bit too swirled for what I was hoping for, but I'm still really happy with the results. Now the really good thing is, when I was looking at all the videos, I did happen to transfer the cutting of this apple sage soap. So let's go and have a look at the actual final result of the soap. Apple sage is now ready to cut open. I am so pleased with how this one has come up so far. It smells so good, and that pineapple is the one that really does shine through on this one. I am going to line this one up on my soap cutter here, and hopefully we will miss all of those apples, and hopefully we'll be able to get the cutter through as well. I think I'm going to have to turn this one around, either that or I will have to get the single bar cutter out. Let's have a look and see. So I'm going to turn it around this way. I'm going to cut it a little bit backwards because I know that this is the end that needs to be whole. We need to come back just a little bit, and that looks like we are going to be fine for cutting. That looks perfect. Alright, so let's go through. As I said, I am really hoping that this one is not going to be too Christmassy once we get it cut open, but it really needed to have that red, and I felt it had to have the green from that sage as well. So we are almost through. Luckily none of those apples have been sliced. Let's have a look at what we've got on the inside. Alright, so seeing as we're cutting backwards, we will reveal from the opposite end this time as well, and that is what the apple sage looks like on the inside. I am so impressed with how intricate and complex those swirls are on the inside there. You can see that this green is a lot heavier in patches, whereas the red is a lot more delicate in its swirl. So doing those 2 different styles of in the pot swirl really do make a difference to how it actually swirls into the soap. I am so pleased with how that has come together, and really happy that it does not look Christmassy. I was really quite worried about that. This fragrance, this apple sage, it is so bright and fresh. Although this fits in with the autumn theme as part of the soap collaboration, I think that this fragrance is going to sell really well throughout the spring and summer months here in Australia. Let's grab this next piece as well. So these swirls are all pretty much going to be the same, with having that green a bit heavier and then that red nice and swirly. And those little apples on the top, they are so cute. Having that melt and pour on the outside of that soap dough really does give them that nice shiny look. And they've got little flecks of the mica that we've sprayed on the top. And also as I turn it in the light, I can see the shimmer of gold come up underneath that skin color as well. And don't forget to go and check out the hashtag that is down in the description box, so you can go and see what some of the other really talented soap makers have done with the themes. Don't forget there were 3 different themes, so I'm interested to see how others interpreted the apple and colour red, but also interested to see how others have done their soaps using the pumpkin, and very keen to see what people have done using the pumpkin and the apple together in one soap. So I hope you've enjoyed watching my collaboration soap attempt. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. If you have any questions, I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And until the next video, I hope you have a great one, and I will see you then. Bye.